By 21, I had cleared all my student debt, bought a home, and built a six-figure company, all with no money from my parents. But when my golden child brother went broke, they sued me for stealing the future he was meant to have. I did not settle. I made an example out of th. I never thought my own family would try to destroy me. But the moment my parents and brother broke into my house, I knew my entire world was about to shatter, and I had to fight back. It was a quiet Wednesday night. The air in my small home office hummed with the software of my laptop, the scent of fresh packing tape in the air. I was deep in inventory, surrounded by boxes and shipping labels, the least glamorous but most essential part of my e-commerce business. Suddenly, I heard it, the unmistakable click of my front door opening, followed by a low murmur of voices. 3, maybe 4. One was definitely Owen. My heart hammered against my ribs. I lived alone. No one had a key. I spun around the corner, my voice catching in my throat. What the? My parents, David and Susan, stood in my entryway. Owen was right behind them, a smug smirk plastered across his face, like he owned the place. And my dad? He clutched a manila folder, wearing that self-righteous look he always did when he lectured me as a kid. My mom offered a tight-lipped smile, as if this was a casual family visit, not a blatant intrusion. How did you get in? I asked, stunned. We used the key, my mom said, like it was nothing. The emergency spare I'd given them years ago, back when I still believed we had a healthy relationship, was apparently an open invitation. I held out my hand. Give it back. Now. She hesitated, then fished it from her purse, dropping it into my palm. But it wasn't just the key. It was the look in her eyes, not embarrassed, but disappointed at me. What are you doing here? I asked, more tired than angry. Owen shrugged, stepping into my living room as if he already owned it. We tried being polite. You slammed the door in our faces. So now we're handling things the proper way. The proper way? I echoed, my eyes narrowing. My dad placed the folder on my kitchen island, sliding it towards me. It's time we had a serious talk, Leo, about what you owe this family. I didn't open it. Not yet. I was too busy trying to figure out if this was some bizarre dream. You're in my house without permission. You have 5 seconds to explain why I shouldn't call the police. Oh, please, my mom scoffed, acting like I was being dramatic. You're acting like a stranger. I wonder why, I shot back. Just read the paperwork, my dad insisted, nodding at the folder. I flipped it open. At first, the legal language blurred, names, numbers, a claim filed in their names against me. Then the words hit me, cold and hard, fraudulent withholding of assets, misappropriation of family investment, unjust enrichment at the expense of sibling. My voice cracked, sharp and loud in the sudden stillness of my home. What the hell is this? Owen stepped up, arms crossed. It's what you get when you lie about where the money came from. I didn't lie about anything. Oh, come on, he said, rolling his eyes. We all know you didn't build this business from scratch. You used the money Grandpa left, didn't you? My jaw dropped. Are you serious right now? He grinned like a cat cornering a mouse. You think I didn't notice how you suddenly got real cozy with e-commerce the year Grandpa died? That's when your little side hustle blew up. Admit it. I didn't get a cent from Grandpa's estate, I said, stunned. He left everything to Grandma. She made that clear. Yeah, and she always had a soft spot for you, my mom said quietly. Even when Owen was the one who needed help. So, let me get this straight, I said slowly. You break into my house, throw false accusations at me, and what? You want me to admit to stealing money I never touched? We want what's fair, my dad said firmly. Owen has been struggling. You've clearly been profiting. It's time to rebalance the scales. There it was. The mask was off. I'd expected manipulation, maybe guilt trips, but this? A lawsuit against their own son. Something in me cracked. Years of being overlooked, talked down to, treated like a background character in Owen's story, all of it boiled over. You want to rebalance the scales? I said, my voice shaking. Let's talk about scales. Let's talk about the 2 cars you bought him before he was 20. The way you co-signed his loans, paid off his credit cards, and let him move back in every time he failed. You've given him everything. And me? I've never asked you for a single cent. Because you were always too proud, my mom snapped. Because I had to be. I shouted. You never offered. You never believed in me. You never even asked what I was building. And now that it worked, you think I owe you? Silence hung heavy. Then Owen muttered, you wouldn't even have a future if it weren't for this family. My fists clenched. You mean the family that's suing me? My dad stepped forward. You can avoid all of this. If you just help your brother get on his feet, we can drop the claim. Clean slate. You mean hand over my money so you don't drag my name through the mud? I challenged. He didn't answer. I picked up the folder and tossed it back onto the island. Get out. Now. My mom looked like she wanted to argue. My dad's face flushed red with a mix of rage and humiliation. Owen didn't say a word, just turned and walked out with that smug swagger that said he thought he'd won. But they hadn't won. They'd just lit the fuse. Over the next few days, the fallout trickled in. A letter from their lawyer confirming they were moving forward. Calls from extended family, old neighbors, suddenly checking in after hearing things. The rumor mill was spinning, painting me as the villain. I tried to focus on my business, but everything felt poisoned. Every email notification felt like a subpoena. Every family text felt like a trap. I stopped sleeping, checking my front door 3 times a night. Then, 3 weeks after the break-in, I got the email that made everything brutally real. It was from my bank. One of my business accounts was frozen, pending investigation tied to a legal dispute. My heart stopped. Fingers trembling, I clicked through. I'd done nothing wrong, paid all my taxes, kept meticulous records. But now, thanks to their baseless claims, I was being treated like a criminal. The bank was polite but firm. The freeze would stay until the claim was resolved in court. Owen said he'd make things fair. He was dragging me into the mud, and my parents were handing him the rope. I thought that was the worst of it. But then I found out something that made my blood run cold. Owen hadn't just filed a lawsuit. He'd filed a restraining order against me, claiming I'd threatened him, that I was erratic, hostile, a danger to his safety. I stared at the copy in disbelief. The timing wasn't a coincidence. He was trying to portray me as unstable, so the court would believe his story, not mine. Character assassination. A smear campaign built on lies, funded by the same people who used to tuck me in at night. That was the breaking point. It wasn't about money anymore. It wasn't even about the lawsuit. It was about principle. About standing up to people who'd used love as a leash and expected me to roll over and thank them. I wasn't going to settle. I wasn't going to apologize. I wasn't going to let them rewrite my story. They wanted a war? Fine. I'd give them one. And the first shot would be fired at the one secret they thought I didn't know, the financial skeleton in their closet. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for a Monday morning in early spring. The sun was out, but I barely noticed. I hadn't slept, too wired, too angry, too focused on every worst-case scenario. My lawyer, Ethan, assured me the case was weak. Judges can smell fabricated drama a mile away. Still, I was shaking when I walked into the courthouse. I wasn't scared of losing this case, I was terrified of what it meant that Owen would go this far, that my parents would swear under oath that I was unstable, coaching him on what to say. Their names weren't on the document, but their fingerprints were all over it. That morning, they all showed up. Owen in a blazer that didn't fit, acting like the victim. My parents sat behind him, his personal support team, mom dabbing fake tears, dad scowling at me as if I'd ruined the family name. 20 minutes in, the judge threw out the case, citing insufficient evidence and a clear motive of financial retaliation. They acted shocked. Owen even tried to speak again after the gavel dropped. But it was over. I didn't feel relief. I felt empty. Even though I'd technically won, I knew this wasn't over. The restraining order was just a distraction, a character hit piece designed to soften me up for the real lawsuit. And it worked, not in court, but in my head. I went home, sat on my living room floor, staring at unopened boxes of inventory. For the first time in years, I didn't want to work. I didn't want to fight. I just sat there, feeling like I'd lost something I couldn't name. Over the next month, everything stalled. My business accounts remained partially frozen. I moved some operations to a backup, but the damage was done. Cash flow took a hit. My ad budget dried up. Fulfillment got slower. Customers noticed, some backed out. One of my best suppliers dropped me, citing reputational risk. I tried to explain, to fight through it, but the more I pushed, the more I felt like I was drowning in mud someone else had poured over me. I was losing my footing, financially and mentally. Then came the worst blow. A Thursday afternoon call from my warehouse landlord. The 800 square feet that had become the beating heart of my operation. He wasn't renewing my lease. Too much legal noise, he said. I've got other tenants. I can't afford drama. I begged, offered to pay 3 months ahead. He didn't budge. I hung up and stared at the wall. That was rock bottom. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just quiet, cold. Something inside me finally broke loose and drifted away. I'd spent 3 years building something honest, something mine. In less than 2 months, the people who raised me had almost destroyed it. I could have folded. I thought about it, even started drafting a letter agreeing to settle for a small sum, just to make them go away. But I didn't send it. That night, I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in over a decade. Her name was Chloe. We used to be neighbors, played backyard tag, rode bikes. We lost touch after middle school. There she was, messaging me through LinkedIn. "Hey, Leo," she wrote. "I saw your name in a mutual post and did a double take. I remembered you from back home. Sorry to hear about the lawsuit. Just wanted to say, don't let them take what you've built. You were always the smart one, the quiet one. But we all knew." I read that message over and over. It didn't fix anything, but it reminded me who I used to be. The kid who stayed up late watching coding videos, who sold homemade candles door to door for fun. The kid who made things even when no one paid attention. And suddenly, I realized something: they couldn't take that from me. They could freeze accounts, spread lies, file lawsuits, but they couldn't touch the part of me that knew how to build. So that night, I got up. I went into my storage room, cleared off my whiteboard, and started again from scratch. Rebuild. Rebrand. Restart. I started small. A few $100s in liquid cash, barely enough for a single Facebook ad. So I went organic: Reddit, Instagram Reels, TikTok snippets. I rebranded my best-selling product under a different name, with a cleaner aesthetic and a more personal voice. I built a new Shopify store using a VPN and a fresh LLC in another state. I stayed up until 3 a.m. every night, making calls, writing copy, learning more about web optimization in 3 weeks than I had in the previous year. And slowly, quietly, it worked. My DMs filled with customers asking where the old brand went, thanking me when I responded personally. One of them was a YouTuber who featured the product in a review. That review blew up. Orders tripled in a week. Meanwhile, the lawsuit stalled. Ethan filed a motion to dismiss. Their team tried to amend it. The judge pushed hearings out, month after month. That gave me time. Time to recover, time to prepare. Because while they were busy spinning fairy tales about how I'd stolen the future Owen was supposed to have, I was busy collecting receipts. Not just business receipts, but family receipts. The tax records I needed weren't easy to get, but they were real. My grandmother, before she passed, had sent me a manila envelope of her own. Inside were copies of the trust she'd set up after Grandpa died. And here's the kicker, Owen had gotten a large payout, $75,000, enough to pay off his college loans, start a business, or buy a house. But he didn't. He blew it. Gambling, bars, trips, crypto scams, all gone within a year. He knew it. My parents knew it. But they never expected me to find out. I also found an old voicemail from Grandma. She left it a few weeks before she passed. Her voice was frail, but clear. I hope you're doing well, Leo. I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. I wish the others saw what I see. Keep going. And remember, don't let them guilt you into saving people who never tried to save themselves. I played that message on repeat, then had it transcribed for evidence. Now I had motive. Now I had proof. The tides were turning, but I didn't tell anyone. I stayed quiet, kept building. I moved my entire operation into a friend's garage temporarily. He ran a coffee roasting business and let me use his backroom for shipping. I went invisible for a while. No posts, no updates, not even to extended family. I let them think I was losing. Let them tell stories about how the truth was catching up to me. And all the while, I was watching, waiting, preparing for the next phase. Because soon enough, the court date would arrive. And when it did, I wouldn't just defend myself. I'd dismantle everything they built. Not out of revenge, at least not entirely, but because some people only learn when you stop letting them write your story and hand them a copy of the real one. Trust me, I was writing every word. They didn't know I had the file. That's what made it so satisfying. The documents from Grandma's estate, tucked inside that envelope she mailed before she passed, weren't just sentimental relics. They were a blueprint, a timeline, a receipt. The kind of thing my parents assumed would never see daylight. After all, Owen had torched through that money before the ink on the check had dried. Who would remember? Who would care? Well, me. I scanned everything, highlighted key figures, the trust fund, the disbursement details, the fact that Owen had been given a $75,000 payout at age 22 under the condition it be used for long-term growth and development. My name? Nowhere on it. I hadn't received a penny. The best part, Grandma had handwritten a note on the back of the final page. Just 6 words in her cursive scroll, Leo doesn't need it. He builds. 6 words that destroyed the entire narrative my parents had constructed. 6 words that turned Owen's sob story into what it really was, an inheritance squandered, not stolen. A future he set on fire. But I didn't go public with it. Not yet. The lawsuit was still crawling forward. My parents' lawyer kept trying to push hearings back, which was fine by me. Every week that passed gave me time to grow stronger, and the more rope to hang themselves with. While they stalled, I started digging. Not just through legal records or bank statements, but through people. There's something interesting about quiet towns. People talk, especially when you're polite, especially when you're quiet. I reached out to an old neighbor, Mrs. Hanson, who used to live across from us. She remembered everything. The day Owen got the check, the brand new car that appeared in our driveway a week later, the parties, the screaming matches between him and my dad when the money ran out. She always said he'd waste it, Mrs. Hanson told me over tea. Your grandma. She wasn't blind, you know. She just didn't want to hurt your mom. I didn't even have to ask for a statement, she offered one. Word got around. Soon I had a small file of messages, texts, even photos, Owen in Austin, champagne in hand, Owen on a boat in Denver, tagged in an old college friend's Instagram post, holding a bottle of vodka and flipping off the camera. The timestamps all within the 12 months after Grandma's trust was paid out. It painted a picture, a loud, obnoxious, undeniable picture. But that wasn't the only angle I was working. I had one more card to play, one that took some finesse. The first person I called was Mr. Harrison. He used to be our family accountant back when my parents still filed their taxes properly. I hadn't seen him in years, but he remembered me instantly. Leo, you were the quiet one, right? The polite one. I need a favor, I said. I wasn't sure he'd agree, but then I told him what was happening, the lawsuit, the restraining order, the accusations. He got quiet. Real quiet. They told me you stole from them, he said after a beat. Said you were hiding something big, but I didn't buy it. Why not? Because I did their taxes the year they got that trust distribution. Susan told me it was going toward Owen's future. Seed money for a tech company, she said. I filed it under a gift transfer, just like she asked. Would you be willing to put that in writing? I asked. A pause. I'll do better, he said. I've still got the files. He sent them the next morning. Now, I had proof from 3 directions: Grandma's trust documents, eyewitness testimony, and tax records showing Owen received money they never disclosed during discovery. Ethan nearly fell out of his chair when I handed him the file. They're cooked, he said. This isn't just a defense anymore. This is counterclaim material. I nodded. That's the plan. But I didn't want to just win. I wanted to change the narrative. So, I started laying out something else, something more public. I rebuilt my brand under a new name, different domain, different visuals, different everything. But this time, I leaned into the story, not the lawsuit itself, just the broad strokes. Built from scratch, I wrote on the About page. Bootstrapped. No handouts. Every dollar earned the hard way. I never named names. I didn't have to. People knew. Old customers returned. New ones followed. Word spread. Someone started a Reddit thread about the rebrand, and it caught fire. This is how you bounce back, one comment read. This guy's work ethic is unreal. My email list tripled. Revenue rebounded. And I stayed quiet, still waiting for one more thing to fall into place, Owen's next move. It came sooner than expected. Ethan called one morning while I was packing orders. They filed an emergency motion, he said. For what? To freeze your personal assets. They're claiming you're hiding money. I should have been furious. I should have been panicking. Instead, I smiled. Let them try. See, while they'd been playing checkers, drunk on rage and entitlement, I'd been setting up the chessboard. Everything I owned was now protected under a new LLC. The house transferred to a trust. The car leased under the business. Even my savings were split between 2 accounts, both under separate holding companies. Ethan laughed when he saw the paperwork. You've been busy. They taught me well, I said. Never trust anyone, not even family. We countered the motion with everything: the tax records, the trust documents, the timeline, Mrs. Hanson's letter, Mr. Harrison's statement, a full audit trail of my business's growth from the day I started selling phone accessories out of my dorm room to the day I bought my house. It was surgical. And devastating. But still, I wasn't done. Because here's the thing about people like Owen and my parents: they don't just want money. They want control. The power to shape the story. The ability to say, "You owe us," and have everyone believe it. So, I planned one final move, something public, something permanent. I scheduled a podcast interview, just a small one, run by a fellow entrepreneur I'd met years ago. It wasn't flashy or viral, but it was honest. For an hour, I told my story. Not the lawsuit, not the revenge, but the real story. I talked about growing up in the shadow of someone who could do no wrong. About building a business at night while my family laughed me off. About paying off student loans with side hustle money. About the power of being underestimated. Sometimes, I said, the hardest part isn't starting from nothing. It's starting from behind, when the people who should have supported you were the ones holding you back. The episode aired a week later. The response was overwhelming. DMs, emails, comments from strangers saying they saw themselves in my words. People who'd been cut down by their own families. People who'd had to fight for every inch. But more than that, people started asking questions. Questions about the lawsuit. Questions my parents weren't ready to answer. Their lawyer called Ethan in a panic. "We'd like to revisit settlement discussions," he said. "We're not interested," Ethan replied. Because now it was too late. I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was setting the terms. The next hearing was coming fast. And I was ready. Not just with evidence, not just with allies, but with the unshakable truth that no matter how many times they tried to rewrite my story, I still held the pen. And soon, I'd use it to end theirs. The courtroom was colder than I remembered. Not physically, no. It was that sterile, stiff kind of cold, the one you feel in your spine when you know something irreversible is about to happen. The walls were beige, the lighting fluorescent. Nothing dramatic. No pounding music, just the hum of tension as everyone took their place. It had been 9 months since they first filed the lawsuit. 9 months since David and Susan and my golden child brother Owen decided I owed them the life he had squandered. 9 months of venomous texts, weaponized family gossip, and pathetic attempts to destroy everything I'd built on my own since I was 18. And now, it was time. Their side looked rattled. Owen sat next to their attorney in a wrinkled suit he didn't know how to wear, chewing the inside of his cheek, trying to disappear. My parents were behind him, like his personal support team. Mom in pearls and pastel, Dad stiff in a blazer that didn't quite fit his stomach anymore. They refused to look at me. I was calm. Not because I wasn't nervous, I was. But it was a strange, quiet calm, the kind you only get when you've spent months preparing for a moment with surgical precision. There was nothing left to panic about. Everything had already been set in motion. Ethan shuffled papers beside me, leaned over, and whispered, "This is going to be fun." The judge, a stern woman in her early 60s, called everyone to order. The hearing began with their lawyer laying out the same tired argument, that I had unfairly benefited from family resources, that I'd misled my parents into believing I was self-made, that Owen's life had been derailed because I hoarded financial assets that rightfully should have been shared. The words sounded so desperate, so hollow. And then it was our turn. Ethan stood. No theatrics, no shouting, just facts. "Your Honor," he began, "we will be demonstrating 3 things. First, that my client, Leo, received no financial support or inheritance from his family. Second, that the plaintiff's son, Owen, received a $75,000 disbursement from a family trust, which he irresponsibly spent. And third, that this lawsuit is a malicious attempt to extract funds from my client under false pretenses after the plaintiffs failed to control their own finances or their son." Then he dropped the folder hard. Exhibit A, the trust documents from Grandma, clearly stating that the money was for Owen and only Owen. My client's name was never mentioned. Exhibit B, the notarized letter from Mr. Harrison, their former accountant, confirming he filed that gift as a trust distribution with explicit instructions from my mother. Exhibit C, a timeline of Owen's social media posts, travel logs, and online purchases, everything from designer sneakers to bottle service in Austin, lining up perfectly with the 12 months following the trust payout. Exhibit D, a recorded voicemail from Grandma herself, authenticated and transcribed, in which she said, in no uncertain terms, Leo doesn't need it. He builds. The courtroom went still. My parents' lawyer tried to object. The judge overruled. The facts stood. Then came the final blow. Ethan pulled out a spreadsheet. Your Honor, we've also prepared a breakdown of my client's business growth over the past 4 years. All of it verifiable. From his dorm room operation to the first product launch to the Shopify sales records. Every dollar, every invoice, every tax return. There's no missing money, no hidden assets. Just a young man who worked hard and succeeded without help. He paused. Meanwhile, we have evidence that the plaintiffs and their son have consistently misrepresented their financial situation to multiple parties, including their mortgage lender and this court. The judge raised an eyebrow, and Ethan smiled. Which is why we're also filing a counterclaim for defamation, malicious prosecution, and emotional distress. I'll never forget what happened next. The judge leaned back in her chair, took off her glasses, and looked directly at my parents. I've presided over a lot of family cases, she said, her voice calm but cold. But this is one of the more cynical attempts I've seen to weaponize the legal system against a relative for personal gain. Based on the evidence presented, I'm dismissing all claims against Mr. Davis with prejudice. Boom. Done. But she wasn't finished. As for the counterclaim, she continued, Mr. Davis is within his rights to pursue damages. And frankly, I believe he has a case. Their lawyer's face went pale. Owen sat there, frozen like a deer in headlights. My mom blinked rapidly, fidgeting with her wedding ring. My dad's face flushed red with something between rage and humiliation. But none of them said a word. Not one. We walked out in silence. Once we were in the hallway, Ethan turned to me. They'll settle. Trust me, they can't afford not to. And they did. 2 weeks later, their lawyer reached out with an offer. They'd cover all my legal fees, issue a written apology drafted by us, and drop any rights to future legal action if I dropped the counterclaim. I didn't agree. Not yet. Because there was one more thing I needed, truth. I had the apology published. Not buried in a private letter or hidden behind legal jargon. I made sure it went public, a formal statement on my business website, shared in an open letter on LinkedIn, and even featured in the same small podcast that had sparked the first wave of support. The truth had to be visible. Not for revenge, but for the record. I didn't want money from them. I wanted accountability. The day the statement went live, I received over 200 emails, strangers, friends, former classmates, even a few old teachers, all saying the same thing, thank you for telling the truth. As for Owen, he disappeared from social media. Word spread he'd left town, maybe moved in with a cousin 2 states over. His name became something whispered in our quiet town, not spoken with admiration, but with embarrassment. And my parents? They lost most of their inner circle. People they used to gossip with now crossed the street to avoid them. Mrs. Hanson said they stopped showing up to church altogether. No more neighborhood BBQs. No more pretending. They didn't just lose the case. They lost the story, because I reclaimed it. In the months that followed, my business doubled. I expanded to 2 new product lines, hired a small team, and launched a mentorship program for underprivileged students trying to start their own ventures. I called it the Builders Fund. I knew Grandma would have liked that. One day, maybe I'll forgive them, but not yet. Because forgiveness is earned. And they never even tried. They thought they could take what I built. They didn't realize, I am what I built. What would you have done if your own family sued you?